Back with Guilford County Schools, Dr. Tony Watlington, Chief of Schools, Dr. Whitney Oakley, Chief Academic Officer, and Angie Henry, Chief Operations Financial Officer, talking about reopening and taking your questions. Angie, let's start with you. This person is asking, what are the different costs for each one of the different plans?
So we haven't calculated the cost for each plan. We know that there are going to be additional costs involved with every one of them. When we look at the K-8 model and then having 9 through 12 learning remotely, we know that there are costs of additional instructional staff in classrooms because we're spreading the number of students over a greater number of classrooms. We also know that we're going to have technology in place for our remote learners. And the same is true for the other two plans where there are alternating days or weeks that students would be in school. While that plan may require less staff, that certainly will require a more robust technology device program. And right now the district is not a one-to-one device district, so we would have to invest resources in devices for our students.
Okay, Dr. Watlington or Dr. Oakley, I'm not really sure which one of you would be the one to answer this question. This one is about buses. How are they going to social distance on buses, and how are they going to schedule pickup time so it doesn't take all day?
Sure, there's a protocol for students to social distance on school buses. Since Ms. Henry is our Chief Operations Officer and she supervises the transportation department, I'm sure she can tell us the details about how that will work.
Certainly, thank you. So on buses, we are working to on a plan that would have one student per seat on the bus, and that's following North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services guidance. So that would allow us to have about 24 students on a 72 passenger bus. We realize that's significantly less than the number of students who ride our buses now. So that will affect potentially bell schedules in our schools for delivery times of students. So we're working on the plans now. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I'm sure it'll have impacts on the length of the school day and the start times and end times for all of our schools.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Oakley, the question is, how will children be tested and graded if parents choose remote learning?
Sure. So when schools closed on March 13th, the state provided some grading guidance. They haven't yet done that for schools who are entering the 2021 school year remotely, but that is a possibility. In terms of teacher feedback will be provided and expected to be provided on anything that students can complete. That would include assignments that are submitted virtually. It could include participation in live instruction. Teacher feedback is critical to student learning, and we would expect that to continue in a meaningful way, whether they're face-to-face or at home doing so on a device.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Watlington, someone's asking, is there any possibility that the district will push back the first day of school?
Certainly the superintendent and the school board will continue to monitor health conditions over the next few weeks, and when we get closer to that time frame, if conditions warrant doing something different, all those options would be considered.
And we're getting several questions again asking, are the first 5 weeks remote for sure?
That is the plan at this time, for the first 5 weeks to be remote. That's correct.
Okay, and then we're getting another follow-up question with that, and someone is asking, what happens if you choose going to school, but then you decide you want to do remote learning? Will you be able to do that?
Students who choose to be in our virtual school will have the option to return to their home school within a year. I think your question was if students opted not to be in the virtual school, but they're in their home school. Mm-hmm. I think that might depend on availability of spaces, but we would certainly need to look into that option a bit further.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Oakley, can we address the ACES program question again? We've had several questions about that as well.
Sure. Our ACES program currently is our after-school program. Right now, what we know is that we're focusing our efforts and our resources on reopening that regular school day for as many students as possible for the greatest amount of time as possible while keeping our students and staff healthy and safe. That might mean that we're not able to offer additional programs that are outside of the regular instructional day or outside of the core instructional program. We're revisiting that as we look at reentry plans, but right now we're focused on doing school. We do know, however, that we need our ACES employees. We need our after-school staff to provide instructional support. We know that we will need more adults as we plan for social distancing. We're also working very closely with our faith-based partners and our community organizations and partners with the district to provide other alternatives for after-school programming, as we know that's something that parents need as they are also returning to work.
Angie, speaking of more people, more staff members, someone is asking, what is going to be the cleaning procedures for the custodians, and how often will the schools be deep cleaned? We've got about a minute left in our question and answer time.
Sure. So all of our custodians will be provided protocols on the cleaning tasks that need to be completed during the school day when the school building is occupied. Clearly, there are going to be high touch, frequently touched areas that need to be wiped down regularly throughout the school day. Same is true for visits to the restroom after students visit the restroom, being sure that we have those areas cleaned with a great number of frequency. So we'll be doing that, and then the evenings we have protocols in place to be able to clean the entire building.
And of course, a decision is expected on July the 28th. We hope that we have answered many of the questions that you have been asking at home. We'll continue to ask questions, get answers for you as more of this gets fleshed out. Thank you so much for joining us today and lending your time and your expertise.